Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's Family Bearings. I'm Jared Campbell, your Kids Ministry Director here at Compass Bible Church Treasure Valley. And what we do here is we talk about what your children have learned this last Sunday, as well as what they're going to learn next Sunday, as well as our intra-week program, Adventure Club, some of the things that we're focusing on. So to start out with this last Sunday, we went ahead and take a look at the parable of the landowner. And so Jesus tells this story to the Pharisees about a man renting out his vineyards to these different landowners, and they ultimately reject him and even put his son to death. And as we look at that parable, it's very clear who he's talking about, especially when he says the original people there would reject the son. They would reject what was given to them. He's talking about the religious leaders of Israel at that time in Israel, that they saw Jesus, but they could not accept him as their Messiah because they had an idea in their mind of who they thought the Messiah was going to be. And ultimately, we see God's judgment poured out on them in that parable, talking about with rejection to the cornerstone, rejection of Christ results in judgment. One of the points that we saw this last week was fear the judgment of God for those who reject him. It's a truth, and it's something we can't avoid. We never want to try to make our children afraid, but at the same time, the truth is what the truth is, and what Scripture says is those who reject Christ, there is a consequence, and that consequence is eternity in hell. And so we tell them what Scripture says, we go through the parable, and we want to encourage them to follow Christ with their lives. This next week, what we're going to be looking at is Matthew 25, 14 through 30, and the parable of the talents. So I'm excited most of us are familiar with the parable of the talents. I'm looking forward to that lesson as well. For Adventure Club, this week we have no Adventure Club, so we get a little bit of a break off. We try to make it once a month that we have a week off just for the volunteers, for the kids, for everyone, just to get a little bit of a breather, and that's this week. And so hopefully coming into the new year, running hard, running fast, starting out, we're getting to get a little bit of a breather here. And so we get this week off. And what's exciting is next week when we come back, we'll be jumping into Eschatology, which is the end times. So the study of the end times. For those of you that get to sit in Pastor Stephen's class for Eschatology, your kids are going to be learning about the same information. And so that's exciting. It's something for you and your kids to talk about. And for this first week, the first week of February, we're going to be looking at eschatology at large. So just the major periods of time, so the church age, the millennium, things like that, the great tribulation, going into Scripture and talking about some of those larger pieces of eschatology. And so I'm really excited to jump in with you and your kids and take a look at what God tells us will happen in the end times and why we can have hope. Well, that's it for this week's Family Bearings. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.